Okay, so welcome back to another lesson. This one is on rhythmic displacement. Something I want to talk about. You can take the melody of a standard and displace the melody rhythmically. You could obviously also displace it harmonically, but we're going to talk about how to displace it rhythmically, and then I'm going to talk about why this is interesting, if you think it's interesting. And you want to pick a standard that has or a jazz composition like this one, Solar, Miles Davis tune Solar, that has some kind of rhythmic hook to it. So it's not just whole notes or half notes. So preferably some tune that has a rhythmic twist to it. So the tune Solar, and then this is the same, pretty much the same rhythmic idea for the next phrase as well. So, and then there's another thing. So let's look at the phrase. I'll play the melody once. I think you know this tune, but I'll play it anyway. Okay, so I'm going to take that melody and I'm going to displace it. I'm going to move it one step ahead. I'm going to move it up even more, so I'm starting with a pickup to the first bar. Okay, so you see what I did there, hopefully, and you might think that, well, that's not so difficult to hear. Problem is that we're playing with this play along, right, that I found online, and it's very straight ahead, the way they're playing. It's not very loose, so it's not so hard to get lost in the rhythm, as it were, as if you're playing in a real life situation. Let's say you're comping and you're playing and the comping is very loose, and you start doing this, and the rhythm section is kind of starts to mess with the rhythm. The drummer starts to mess with the rhythm. It's very easy to get lost in to lose the one, as it were. So that's one of the reasons why we're practicing this way, because you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to manipulate the rhythm without losing it. So if I do the same thing but with the metronome and no backing track, no play along, you might see that it's a little bit harder to tell where the actual form is. So here's a metronome on 2 and 4. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So maybe you noticed that I was messing around a little bit. I was doing different ones. So you might feel that, oh, that wasn't as easy to hear where the actual form is, because what happens is that you're so used to hearing the melody the way it's supposed to be, and if you hear it displaced, your brain kind of starts to shift the the gravity of the pulse or whatever, so it feels like the beat gets turned around. It's hard. I can't really explain it better than that. Which is what you don't want. So why are we practicing this way? Because one thing, you want to be able to hear the phrase the way it sounds in relation to regardless of where you put it in the beat. This is something that musicians do in jazz and in soul and gospel, R&B. I don't hear it much in other styles of music, but I definitely hear it in jazz. If you listen to jazz vocalists, they often do this. Some of them do it more than others. Sometimes it can get a bit much. But a great example, I think, is there's this YouTube video of Kurt Elling where he sings Nature Boy, and he does it beautifully. He just starts the phrases very, very late or early, but it doesn't take away from the greatness of the song, because if you do it too much, it's kind of disrespectful, I think, to the audience and to the tune. No, just because you're bored with the tune doesn't mean that everybody else is bored with the tune. So it's something that you practice, but you don't want to overdo it. But what you do want is to have the ability that when the drummer turns the rhythm around, you don't want to lose the rhythm. You want to be able to hear the phrase in the new context, right? So that's why it's good to write it out like this, because then you can see that what it looks like. It helps for me anyway. So there's this danger with the play-alongs, right? Because you might be practicing this way with the play-along, but when you play with a real drummer and a real rhythm section, it's going to be different. So that's why it's also important to practice with just a metronome on beat 2 and 4. You could also displace it just by an eighth note. So that's going to be a little bit more tricky. So I'm going to put the metronome on every beat. Here is the rhythm displaced by a quarter and an eighth note, I guess. We'll do that again. 2, 1, 2. I hope I did that right. I think I played that right. Sometimes it's easy to get confused. So another thing that happens is that when you practice this way, you start hearing, being able to hear where a rhythm can go. So if you play a rhythmic idea, and it's good to be able to take a rhythmic idea from the song and kind of move it around. That's kind of what improvising should be, I think. It shouldn't be just arpeggios, scales, and licks, right? It should be, it's more creative to take a rhythmic idea, motif, and preferably a motif that it has something to do with the tune you're playing. That should give you an idea of where the solo could go, and great players do this all the time. So I'm gonna try to take the rhythmic idea from Solar and play it over Solar and show you what I'm talking about. See what I did there? I just kind of took that phrase and manipulated it a little bit. So there's many ways you can displace or you could change the rhythm. What I'm trying to do here is take the exact same rhythm and just starting on a different beat. Usually anticipating, so that's kind of what you want because it gives you that forward motion, right? So, but you could also play it later, obviously. So I'll leave you with another tune, a very famous hook, Honeysuckle Rose. So I recently had the honor of playing with a pretty well-known Swedish trumpet player, older guy, and we played this tune, and he was just moving the melody around like crazy, and luckily I was able to keep up with him. But that's a good example of when that can throw you off if you're not ready for that, and you don't want to be thrown off. But there's some musicians who seem to take pride in being able to throw other musicians off. Like this guitar player, he can make any drummer lose the one. It's like I don't understand that. Like, wow, that's not a skill that is valuable in and of itself. It's just, that's not the point of music, to confuse people, right? But if you hear the rhythm and it wants to go somewhere, you want to be able to go there, even if it's a difficult thing, even if it makes and you sometimes want the rhythm to be ambiguous, like where is it? You listen to salsa music, for example. Sometimes you can listen to it and it's like, where is the one? Like, it's so rhythmically I don't want to use the word complex, but rhythmically ambiguous. So that gives the music a dimension, that music that is very rigid and very like don't have. So I really can't explain it better than that, but I think you know what I mean. But anyway, I digressed. So here is the melody of Honeysuckle Rose displaced in different ways. See you next time.